All over the country, thousands of old buildings lie forgotten and neglected, often tangled up with red tape and development restrictions. Many of these properties are steeped in history and are of outstanding architectural interest. In this series, you're going to see buildings that no other sane developer would touch with a barge pole: windmills, follies, gatehouses and churches. I'm passionate about our architectural heritage, and I want to help breathe new life into these buildings and make them useful again. Getting planning though can be really tricky.
I can't think of a good reason why this house should not have an extension.
You've got to understand the process, the politics. The whole business has to be something you enjoy, and it's a way of life.
Luckily, up and down the country, people are buying these forgotten gems. These stubborn romantics all share one dream. They want to create a home which is totally unique.
I like the softened corners, the arches, the little tunnels.
I want this to be like a secret garden.
But their labours of love can come at a huge personal price, both financially...
We're not close to running out of money. We have run out of money.
...and emotionally.
It nearly tore us apart.
When you take on a listed building, you're taking on a responsibility.
You've got to listen to other people, you know. You can't just make exactly what you want.
I hope I can bring my vision and expertise to help these restoration warriors realise their dreams.
Just didn't want to live in a normal terrace house again.
A heritage house with all modern day facilities, but crucially with its structural soul intact. Celebrating the past, yes, but inventing a new future for these architectural treasures in the 21st century. I've come to Ormskirk in Lancashire. Mark Horton and his wife Sheena have bought this 18th century Grade 2 star listed Gothic Revival folly for £290,000 and dream of converting it into a large family home.
I first saw it about 18 months ago. With its Gothic arches, you could just see bits from behind the green vine. It just looked really sort of like an old spooky castle thing. She came down to see it with me and she fell for it straight away.
It was a pile of bricks,
yeah.
Quite literally. And can't really see how it can be a house.
Doesn't have a roof.
It's a listed building and it's fallen to bits, so it's in the middle of a field. There's no road to it, there's no water, there's no electricity, no gas.
I think he can finally build us a home where we may be able to unpack our stuff
yeah,
and settle in for once.
Mark is 46 and has owned his own successful building company for over 15 years. They specialise in hospital refurbishment and office and residential interiors. Sheena is a housewife and looks after their 3 daughters. Danielle, 21, who's just finished university, Liberty, who's 15 doing her GCSEs, 5-year-old Ruby, and their 2 dogs, Alfie and Tilly. Having sold their last home, they rent this house in Southport. Where I can, I'm going to help, advise and support them on this restoration journey.
This location for me is just so beautiful. I mean, it's a bit of a grey, miserable English summer day, which is a shame, but the landscape is so typically English. You've got these stunning cornfields. You've actually got a railway line just running over the back there in the distance. The little church over there. It's absolutely beautiful. But what's bizarre is as we're approaching this building, there's no road, there's no track, there's nothing. So I'm having to walk through the cornfields to get there. That's fantastic. Absolutely stunning. Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay.
Hello, you. Who's this?
It's Ruby.
It's going to be home soon.
One day.
Well, maybe not soon. I shouldn't say that,
maybe
should I?
not too
I shouldn't put the
soon.
pressure on too much, mate.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah, next year.
What did you think when you found out that he bought it? Did he tell you?
Mark tells me when he's bought it.
Right, afterwards.
Afterwards. Like the year the 2 of them went to Spain. Most people go to Spain and bring either a postcard back. Mark comes back to tell me we've got a house. Right, OK.
And it sounds like you've always been a bit dubious about his other projects, but this one...
It's good, yeah. It's good.
I love it.
I am, yeah, but it's going to be exciting to watch each step. And I know Mark's always wanted to build his own house to live in. Even though he's always done sort of restoration work, nothing to this extent. So in a way, this is his dream. I think that's what's making it exciting.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that he's going to actually build something that we're going to live in.
I'll make him an offer when he's finished it.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, no, don't, because knowing Mark, he'll move us on to the next project. We never know where we're going to be.
Odd, eccentric buildings like this one are a particular British phenomena and are called follies for good reason. In the 18th and 19th centuries, anyone who was anyone built a folly, and there are still about 1,500 of them in the UK, mostly on country estates. Aristocratic sons would trot off around Europe on the Grand Tour, a sort of posh gap year. On their return, they wanted to celebrate their adventure. Not for them a few photos and an update on Facebook, no. Instead, they flashed the cash and built an architectural statement for all to admire, in the classical Greek or Roman style. Our folly was allegedly built in the 1750s by a relative of the 10th Earl of Derby, the family famous for the Epsom horse race, and the 14th Earl of Derby, who served as Prime Minister 3 times. It was built in a Gothic revival fashion, a reaction against the classical architecture of the Renaissance, considered a bit too pagan for their liking. The Gothic style seemed to fit better with the Protestant conservative values of Victorian Britain. Although we all know those Victorians were right old goers behind their closed doors. The most famous Gothic revival building is the Houses of Parliament in London.
You've got yourself a cracking building here.
It's all right, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a lot to do to it.
Yeah, it looks like it, but it's beautiful, man. You're in the most fantastic setting as well. Yeah. How did you come across it?
I was having a bacon butty and I saw it in a free paper.
You're joking?
Nah. So I've just got a feeling that it's going to be where I'm going to finish my days off, you know. I'm not going to do another one.
It might finish you off, mate. That's the worrying thing.
I'm going to be in the foundations, either me or the wife, one of us.
It's one of the things, isn't it? You see a building like this, all nice and idyllic in the countryside, and people fall in love with it, but you don't realise there's no infrastructure there. There's no services, there's nothing. You're mad, aren't you?
Yeah, probably.
The building footprint is 900 square feet. While the exterior is of historical interest and is Grade 2 star listed, archaeological plans show the inside of the building has been continually changed. In the 19th century, it was converted into residential use and was divided into 4 rooms upstairs and 4 rooms downstairs. With the building in danger of collapsing, Mark has planning permission to keep and restore the exterior, but can completely redevelop the interior.
That wall's going to be gone. Yeah. Walk up the stairs, you turn back on yourself, and then directly here there's going to be a little oak library, and then this will be open right the way up to the roof space with skylights in.
And how many bedrooms?
Just 1 bedroom, that's going to be.
Just one?
Just 1 bedroom.
So what, you're doing an extension or something?
A little bit of a one on the back.
A little one?
Yeah, and everything, the kids are going out there, so that'll be very modern, and this will be quite traditional in this bit.
Mark plans to strip the original layout of small rooms into a 1-bedroom house for him and his wife. The bedroom will occupy all the first floor, and downstairs there'll be a living room and double-height dining area by the staircase. Outside, existing foundations show originally there was a cobbled courtyard and farm buildings around an L-shaped wall. Mark plans to use these foundations to create a new fully enclosed courtyard by adding an additional wall. This courtyard extension is massive, 3,500 square feet, housing 3 big bedrooms for each of his daughters, a kitchen diner, a utility and a games room that all look onto a central fountain. So it's an impressive modern extension attached to the folly at the back.
I think this is brilliant. I absolutely love it. And I think he's great as well. I think he's got loads of energy, loads of enthusiasm and a lot of passion for the building, which counts for everything. The thing that I'm just intrigued about is what the new extension is going to look like though, because it's massive. I mean, 17 metres out from the back of the old building is a huge extension to doing something like this, and I'm not quite clear in my mind what it's just going to look like, but hopefully it'll be brilliant.
Derelict since the 1940s and in the middle of a cornfield on a rambling estate, it has no utilities, no water, no access road, and the surrounding farmland is boggy.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, George.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm all right, yeah.
How's it going?
OK.
Good.
Great.
You going to give us a day's work?
Do
you pay well?
No.
Right, I'm going, sod it.
What do you want to do, mate?
Anything, what do you want to do?
Get
It's a bit of
some
grafting for you. Yeah, come on.
Bit of stone in the barrow.
Yeah, you give us a little dodgy one. I was seeing a bad workman always blames these tools and you give me that.
I got that with some toffee. Huh? I got that with some toffee.
Where do you want it?
Just round there by the back door.
In there, actually.
Being a building contractor, Mark has the confidence to dive straight in, and with his own team of builders, including his younger brother, has started stripping the Folly's interior. But even as they start to lay the foundations, the problems of a remote site like this are beginning to surface.
All around here, the land's really flat, and the natural water table, which is the amount of groundwater, is so high. So if you dig a hole just a foot down, you hit water. And that's a tricky thing when you're building here. So as soon as you put a trench in, all the water's coming back up. And you don't want water in there when there's that much concrete.
So just 2 weeks into the project, even an experienced builder like Mark is finding that restoration can be challenging. This is a totally different game to refurbishing hospitals and new builds.
And stop the footing! Stop it back here!
It's a funny thing, because when people get seduced by old buildings, they see them and go, oh, that's beautiful, I'll buy it. But what they don't realise is if you haven't got a decent road, you haven't got electricity, you haven't got power, you haven't got all those things, it's a nightmare. And it adds thousands of pounds to the build and means that it's much more harder work. So the sooner that Mark can get the road in, the better. The build can move on much quicker. They can get materials delivered, they can get mixers here, they can get cement guys here, everything, and work much faster. At the minute, it's, you know, it's semi-medieval. It's quite like it, actually.
Mark is totally unfazed by the huge building logistics of this project. With all his finance in place, he's planning to drill a £6,000 borehole to find spring water and install 280 metres of armoured cabling to get electricity to the site. He's also going to put in a large reed bed soakaway for drainage. But conservation is a totally new area for him. So I'm wondering how he's dealing with all the special planning permissions necessary with restoring a Grade 2 star listed building like this, particularly if you want to add a modern extension.
And what about the conservation people?
They're okay, the local office has been good. I mean, any conservation officer wants it to the letter, but he has given us a bit of leeway.
Conservation officers have different opinions for different buildings in different areas. Because some of them quite easily could have come along to you and said, you know what, we want the extension to be traditional, we want you to match the brick, even maybe pick up on some of the brick detailing, you know, the saw-tooth detailing across the top. We want you to look like an exact replica that it's been there for the last 300 years.
Well, that's what I wanted to do, but they don't want us to do that. They want us to give it a modern twist at the back. But I'm still arguing that.
Most people, when they think about restoration projects, just think, oh, you know, it's all a bit old, it's all a bit dusty. Well, it's not. It's about how do you make this building work in the 21st century.
Once you get that thing about a property or anything that you really, really want it, it seems to take over and you sort of put all the problems with the property don't seem to matter. And you don't, and then you suddenly wake up one day and you think, I've got all that, I've got to fix all that.
Unlikely as it may sound, in the 18th century, Ormskirk had pretensions to rival the likes of Harrogate and Bath. It was a spa town, famed for the healing properties of its water. Charles Stanley, local landowner and a sort of Duncan Bannatyne of his day, was keen to capitalise on the trend for healthy water treatments and built a spa complex. Complete with cold water plunge bath, it may have been a trifle optimistic, given the Lancashire climate. The name may suggest otherwise, but it's actually debatable whether Bath Lodge was associated with the spa complex at all. The local records from the Crosshall estate have sadly gone missing, and nobody can now agree on the exact history of this building. Pevsner, the famed recorder of all significant buildings in the UK, calls it a bathhouse, which might seem to settle the matter. But West Lancashire Borough Council are adamant it's a former hunting lodge. And English Heritage really stick their necks out, describing it as a Grade 2 star listed folly or hunting lodge. Looks like it's up to me, Curious George, to get to the bottom of this architectural enigma. I'm off to meet local historian Mona Duggan, who has written 11 books about the Ormskirk area, who I hope will shed some light on the subject. I've also come across a book written in the 1940s by landgirl Rachel Knappett, a poet on the Midden, who writes about the character who supposedly lived there.
It actually talks about an Irishman called Barney who used to actually live in the building. And then it's even said here about a girl who tragically kind of kills herself at the building. It says, many years ago, an unfortunate girl who was living in the castle leapt from an upstairs window, ran across the field and drowned herself in the pond. According to Barney, her sad ghosts haunt the place still today. The thing with this building is it is shrouded in history and mystery, but nothing seems to be definite.
It's clear Barney lived there in the early 1900s, and maybe the estate's master of the hounds was there even earlier. The internal layout suggests this, as do the outside kennels. Mona Duggan is the most knowledgeable local living historian in the area, and probably my best shot at unravelling this mystery. Was it originally built as a bathhouse connected to the spa at nearby Bath Farm, or was it merely a decorative folly in the landscape with no practical use?
This is when I went to see it. I happened to get to know the farmer who owned the land. Up till that stage, I'd never managed to get onto the land because it was very private and you had to go down unmade roads and things. They put it alongside this one, which is the...
look at that.
That must have been taken, I think, in the early years of the 1900s because of the way the lady's dressed. She looks almost Victorian, doesn't she?
At that. That is an amazing
can't
photograph. It's great. I mean, you can see all the original windows and absolutely everything. So, Mona, what was this building used for? What do you know about it?
Well, its origins are very confusing anyhow. Definitely there was a bath there and a spa. And in fact, on some of the early maps, you can see all the woodland that they laid out so that the people who came to the spa could have a little wander around the woods and things after they'd had their bath.
So it was definitely a bath and spa of some form?
Yes. The main thing was that they were to drink the waters and then wander around these beautiful woods and things. And it was just a pleasure garden in actual fact. If they were modest, perhaps the ladies bathed in Bath Lodge and the gentlemen bathed in the farm, because there were baths up at the farm. I've actually seen those have been excavated. So whether the sexes were segregated or not, I don't know.
What would the space have felt like, do you think?
It would be relaxing and they'd chatter and you never know, there might have been a bit of matchmaking going. The gentlemen came down from theirs and the ladies, and then they met behind the bushes and there we were.
Local legend also says it might have been a brothel, or certainly somewhere where the local lords might have taken their mistresses. But I didn't want to ask a lady like Mona about that. So all the other rumours that I've heard are all rubbish?
I should think so. You never know what might have happened once it became derelict, though, do you?
Mona is absolutely lovely, and with a lot of conviction, she said that this building is a bath lodge, a spa. But to be honest, there's no mention of that anywhere. English Heritage and all these other bodies call it a hunting lodge and a folly in the landscape. So even though she had some conviction, I'm not entirely convinced. I think this is going to need a lot more research. It's a prime example of rumour just going around a local area about what a building might or might not have been. Before Mark could get planning permission from West Lancashire Council, he had to pay £950 for a historical survey, documenting the exact condition of the building before he could do anything to it. Ron Gurney is the local seismic archaeologist who carried out that survey, so I'm hoping he's got concrete scientific evidence about the building's former purpose. So Ron, you've carried out the archaeological building survey. What can you tell me about this building? Was it used as a proper bath lodge or not?
Well, what we can tell basically is that the building itself does not appear to have been used as a bath in any form.
Okay.
It's basically part of the... we do believe it's probably part of the cold water plunge complex, but not a sort of a working part. Okay. More of a sort of a view.
So why would this have been built? Why was it here?
Well, we think it's possibly a sort of a practical folly. It's certainly built by the landowner as a sort of a statement on the landscape, right. And designed obviously to be viewed from a distance.
But that building was not used for bathing.
That's right. I think that's more or less you hit the nail on the head.
Thank God for that. It's taken me months to get to that stage. So it seems at last that all of the detective work for the history of this building is over. And I think everyone was right, from English Heritage to local historians to Pevsner, because this building has had so many different uses in its lifetime. Originally it was built in the 1700s as a decorative folly to be admired from afar. It never had a plunge pool, but was loosely connected to the health spa at nearby Bath Farm, if only as a rendezvous for amorous liaisons, hence the label Bath Lodge. In the 19th century, it became a hunting lodge, when it was converted for practical use as a home for the gamekeeper. After World War II, it was left to rot, until its current custodian Mark came along. Now, with all the architectural plans in effect being completed, I really want to help Mark with the finishes and the details, and I'm hoping that I can convince him to use beautiful oak bifold doors to open out onto the courtyard. Courtyards are my favourite type of building and have been around since at least 3000 BC. The earliest civilisations in China, the Middle East and North Africa all had them. Some of my architectural heroes today are famed for using them. Japanese architect Tado Ando's Azuma House and Kashino House are all about being in touch with the elements within your home. And Charles Correa's Coromangala House in South India is considered one of the most influential houses of the 20th century. Well, the Bath Lodge is still a little way off that. 2 months into the build, personal troubles have struck the family. Mark's wife has taken ill and is in hospital. It couldn't have come at a worse time, as the financial pressures are mounting too. The bank is pulling the loan. Just how tricky has it been with the banks? Because since your credit crunch...
I mean, for example, on Monday they were down, the bank was down and everything was happy and they sent back the paperwork and everything was okay. And by Friday, after the bank had been took over, they changed the lending completely. So even though they'd agreed it in principle, they took it back 4 days later.
It's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? When you've got something in your head that you think the bank's on board, they're happy, everything's fine, credit crunch comes along, the bank gets sold to somebody else, the rules change, they come back to you and go, well, actually, we're not quite sure, mate.
I've always been able to borrow whatever I've wanted to borrow from the bank, and to suddenly be told no is a bit of a shock, you know.
I suppose at the minute, though, you're financing the entire thing out your own pocket, there's no bank money.
That's it, it's all my money at the moment.
Which means you're really stretching yourself to be able to make that happen.
Well, chest pains all weekend, but it's stressful. Money things are stressful, you know, and I didn't think I have to worry about it. But I mean, at the end of the day, if it takes a bit longer and a bit of stress involved in it, it's part of it, innit? And once it's all done, you forget about it, don't you? You know, you move on. That's it. I'll have a nice little house. Start taking life a bit easier.
The project is running 4 weeks behind schedule. The bank has pulled the money, his wife is in hospital, he's running 2 businesses, the restoration project and looking after his 3 daughters. It's an enormous burden which could tip any man, even a hyperactive workaholic like Mark, over the edge. Little did I know, Mark's life was in serious danger as he was about to have a massive heart attack. Thankfully he survived, so I'm visiting him at home to check that he's okay. How did it make you feel knowing that you were just a couple of days from death?
At the time I just didn't, I know it sounds, but I didn't think about it. I had so much going on in my head anyway, with other things. It's only afterwards that you come around and you think, you start to realise then how fragile your life is, you know, how easy it's taken away from you. But within a couple of days I would have been dead, there's no two ways about it. I've just got to realise that I've got to start slowing down, basically eating less bacon butties, drinking less, a bit more exercise, you know.
But do you think you can take your foot off the pedal now?
I am really struggling because the business doesn't really let you. Being self-employed, you can't actually say, right, I'm stopping today, because you employ people, you've got tax bills to pay, you've got everything else to pay. You can't ring up the tax man and say, sorry, I've had a heart attack, any chance of 6 months off? I've come from a council estate or whatever. A lot of people out there come from council estates. But you have this in the back of your head that you don't ever... Not there's anything wrong with the council estate, but whatever you make, it never... I don't think it ever really feels like it's yours. So you have to work a bit harder to keep that, you know? And always have that nest egg to stop it, so your kids can always have a better chance than what you did.
Mark's obviously been in the building game for a long time. He loves doing up buildings. But to be honest, I think most of the buildings he's done up in his life are probably stuff like this. Do you know what I mean? Houses that aren't really that great. It's kind of the builder's game projects. And he's fallen in love with the Bath Lodge. He adores that building. He even said
in that conversation, you know, he looks around to his missus and says, if I don't make it out of this hospital, finish the bath lodge, because I've done it for you and I've done it for the kids. That's huge. You know, emotionally, that is amazing for him to take all the risks and the pressures that he does in life, just so his wife and his kids have got a beautiful place called home. And I'm just happy that he's around now to finish it.
When I heard the news, I was worried this project would grind to a halt. But luckily, his younger brother Clive has been holding the fort while Mark's been recuperating.
What's it been like the last few months? Because obviously with him being ill.
It's been hard work, yeah, it has been hard work. When he wasn't well, yeah, a bit spooky. I wasn't into that at all. It was hard trying to get on with the job and not, you know, wanting to run up and ring him up all the time and go down and see how he was. Because it was a bit frightening, to be honest, yeah.
I'm not surprised, really.
Yeah, especially when we went down on the night when he was taken down onto Liverpool. Not nice at all.
I suppose it's always in the back of his mind that if he gets too stressed again.
Exactly, yeah, so at the moment it's difficult. If anything goes wrong, I try to sort things out with the lads, sort of without telling him really. But he does get to find out eventually, but I try to wangle it so that by the time he finds out, it's already been sorted.
Despite the doctors advising a 12-week break, just 4 weeks after his heart attack, Mark is back on site, albeit not every day. He just couldn't keep away. It's a cold, filthy English winter's day, and certainly not a place for a man who's recovering from a serious heart attack. But it's important Mark's on site. In the next few hours, everything could go horribly wrong. The crane is on site to put into place the critical new green oak beams that have come from France. They will literally keep the building standing, but placing them in the old brickwork is very tricky. If they bang the structure, it could fall down.
Inside, what we've had to do is build a complete new concrete block structure, like another house within the house, to support the whole of the outer skin, because it's in such a bad way. That's all tied in now with anchor bolts. And that should keep most of the building together as a structure. That's why we've had to come up from the inside, and now we're taking the roof off, because there's something there to hold the two gables up.
I was surprised no one from the Conservation Office or the Council was here for such a crucial day of the project.
Not seen any planners, I've not seen anything from the Council. They've all left me alone, so they hope, you know, to be quite true, I think they're quite brave to give us a chance of, because most councils still have that stupid mentality of a grade 2 listed building that's got to be done in a certain way. Also what's happening is these grade 2 listed buildings all over the country just falling to bits. So this council have been brave with this one, but they've been trying to sell this building for about 35 years. Nobody's bought it. So the fact I've bought it now, and we are saving it, you know, it will be a house, and it will last, you know, another 300 years.
While Mark's passion and can-do attitude is admirable, I'm really worried that pushing again so hard so quickly might just give him another heart attack. And next time, he might not be so lucky.
Mark, how are you, mate?
How do you, mate?
Good to see you. How's it going?
All right.
You well?
Yeah, planning on it. It's going really good.
Oh, Mark, this is brilliant. Look at this. It's absolutely fantastic. I can't believe you've got it up this quickly, actually. What an amazing piece of building work, mate. It's a fantastic courtyard, isn't it? Stunning, stunning little courtyard. The build has moved on so much. I'm kind of confused how it has done, because you didn't have any money the last time I was here. The bank had pulled all the funding, and you didn't have much money left in the bank. So how have you managed to do all this?
I've just used every penny that I've got, every bit on my overdraft, any spare money that I had in my business, anything.
Well, I suppose it's the problem with any property purchase that's a wreck like this. You're always taking a risk. There's always a risk somewhere, isn't there?
There's a big risk.
But now there's just a bigger risk because of the credit crunch.
Even bigger, even bigger. And then all you need now is you get the conservation officer, or you get the heritage or something like that to stop you half the way through or something and say it's a site of special interest or whatever, and then you're knackered because you can't finish the job off. You're into the bank for hundreds of thousands and they don't give a monkey because all they're interested in is the fact that you've saved the property. Yeah. Then it's your job to keep it saved, even though you've got no money, so you could quite easily become a cropper.
So it's bad for restoration.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, you've got to get going get it looking something like so they can actually see past the brickwork, past the rubble. They've got to be able to see past that to give a valuation. I mean, we've paid 300,000 for this. We've spent probably 100,000, and the bank's valued it now at just under £1 million. So if they look past it, you can see there's money there. You can make money still. You just got to be careful how much you spend.
Horrible process, though.
Oh yeah, very stressful.
Now the bank can see the potential in this building, they've given Mark £158,000 to finish the project. Structurally, the building is complete, so from here on in, it's all about the detailing. Heart attacks apart, I'm concerned the conservation officer has not visited site for a long time, and I'm beginning to worry about Mark's finishes.
When you're doing an old building in a unique location, you've got to think about the architecture being different and what that architecture really needs. And you can't just take the rules of a standard normal domestic house and apply it to an old building like this. And what Mark's done is gone, oh well, of course you have ripple glass in a bathroom. Of course you do, because I've done it in every other house that I've done everywhere else in the world. And it's like, well, yeah, if you're on the carsy in there or in the bath, who's going to see you? No one. He's got no next door neighbours. No one's going to come wandering around the field. Even if they did walk down the field, they're not going to see him on the loo because he's in the first floor. So why put ripple glass in this building? It doesn't make any sense architecturally. It just doesn't.
Even for an experienced builder like Mark, dealing with conservation officers and restoring a listed building like this requires a completely new set of skills. I'm trying to give him all the support I can, but I'm not sure it'll be enough.
I just don't know if he's got that touch to get the real detail of the interior of this property absolutely right.
Mark has now had a conservation officer on site, and the news is not entirely favourable.
The situation at the moment is that we're looking at some minor changes to the approved plan that Mark has done. Those panels or sections where the new building joins the old building are really important to define the old historic building from the new work.
Mark has used old bricks with the new extension at the front and wants a seamless join. Conservation want a clear distinction between the old folly and the new building with a modern glass panel.
The worst scenario is that it's going to cost about 25 grand. When it's a conservation officer, what he says tends to go, unless you want to fight him.
Mark, coming from the new build aspect, has forgotten that he can't just move on and do things on his own accord. It's not a standard house, and there are special considerations for a listed building.
I've given Mark as much help as I can with the detailing, and I'm hoping, despite budgetary constraints, he's taken my advice and the conservation officer's feedback on board. But after his heart attack, my first concern is his well-being.
How's the heart?
All right.
Is it still beating?
Yeah, half of it.
Half of it? This looks bloody brilliant.
See the skylights in there now. We've got to paint it, but I was going to paint it anyway.
Oh, what have you done? What have you done?
It's plastic, isn't it?
Bloody plastic! I hate it. All the lovely quality materials you've used on this. You're all singing, all dancing, glass skylight, you're doing it in white plastic.
Yeah. It's budget. You don't want to overspend now. I'm trying to keep it on budget because we've gone quite a bit over, you know.
I know Mark has spent £200,000 more than he anticipated, and I don't want to add to the stress, but I feel that he might be bottling it and will fall at the last hurdle.
So that's just one big glass skylight across there?
Yeah, but what's the framing on it?
It's oak underneath and then plastic on the top. You don't see it, it's flat.
You do from your upstairs window. You're going to look out and see white plastic sections on top. Why don't you do it in aluminium?
A lead capping.
Broke, exhausted and struggling with his health, I understand that he just wants to finish it. But I'm going to try and persuade him to rethink the skylight between the old folly and the new build, because I know the conservation officer will definitely not like any more PVC white plastic. I fear small savings at the end are risking the architectural soul of the building. As the bank has valued the property at £1 million, compromising now is a false economy.
All right, Mark, we're going to have to come up with a detail for how this glass is going to work, because we've got, obviously, the line of the old building, the new blockwork that you've put up there, and then we've got the new roof edge, if you like, where all this timber is. And I just love it when you stand here, you look straight up, and the glass is going to be there. I mean, even on a day like today, you can see what the impact of that's going to be. Beautiful blue sky, beautiful sunlight on the old building, and loads of natural light coming down into the space. Excellent. Yes, I realise that we're in the thick of a terrible credit crunch. Yes, I know that money's really tight for Mark, but he's got to realise with any successful restoration project, it's all about getting the details absolutely right. And this skylight is probably the most important detail on the entire project. It's the junction between the old building and the new courtyard. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be beautifully designed and in keeping. You can't put something in there that's the kind of cheap, nasty UPVC. This has got to be a quality material, and for me, it's got to be clad in oak.
The good news is Sheena is out of hospital and back on site supporting Mark.
Yeah, we should be doing curtains, that sort of stuff.
I'm chief curtain maker, I think.
Yeah.
I've never done it before, so I'm not sure what they'll look like.
She'll probably cheat and go and get them bought and pretend she's made them.
I have actually thought about doing that. He won't buy me a new sewing machine, so I refuse to do the...
She's got a sewing machine, but she wants a new super duper one.
I just want a new one, that's all. So... Now I'm going to be doing all the soft furnishings, aren't I?
Yeah.
I think when I was away I felt sort of out of it, but now I'm back I feel really keen. I want to have a lot of say in things. I do feel part of it now.
It's good to have her back, you know, because it is such a lot to do.
While the furnishings and fittings are all important, the pressing issue is the visit from the conservation officer to discuss the joining of the old bath lodge to the new extension. The conservation officer wants some costly changes, which cash-strapped Mark is trying to resist.
Well, that looks a lot better, doesn't it?
To keep the peace, Mark agreed to install a glass panel at the side, but the real expense and bone of contention is at the front. He's used old bricks and wants a seamless join. Conservation is demanding another glass panel between old and new.
I don't think that the two styles are completely different anyway, so that gives you a physical break.
The way that the extension's been designed is to provide a sort of modern ancillary extension to the principal building. We need to follow that through to create that break between the new and old. I don't treat you any differently than I would treat any other owner of a listed building. I make everybody jump through the hoops, unfortunately.
The conservation officer is not backing down, and after 6 months of negotiation, Mark reluctantly agrees with a letter of intent to put a glass panel in at the front of the building. And there is more bad news inside. As I thought, the conservation officer does not like the protruding plastic skylight, and it too will have to be replaced.
Clearly, when you come down the drive and in the landscape, you suddenly see the little plastic roof sticking up.
It was all about a budget, and me thinking this is the cheapest way of doing it, and it doesn't work. This is the one George did. As you can see, he put less of an angle on, and this one works. And I'm not having to take this one off like the one I've done.
This works because, again, it's this idea of the glazing. It's hidden, for one, but also it's that idea that the glazing provides that link, that light touch between the new extension and the old building.
What Mark needs to understand is that he's not really the owner of this building. He's just a custodian for future generations. What matters here is not what he wants, but what is best for the building. It's been a costly exercise, but Mark's finally learned his lesson.
Not everybody gets everything right. Doesn't matter how clever you are, or how clever you think you are, how smart you think you are, whatever. You've got to listen to other people, you know. You can't just make exactly what you want.
I first came to this majestic but sad and forgotten building 13 months ago, and had to walk literally through a field to get to it. Now there's a road, but it's winter and Mark hasn't yet had time to landscape outside.
I mean, he's still got the porta cabin here and sheds here and skips here and everything else, so he must have just moved in. But the building looks absolutely brilliant.
This building has had many incarnations. It began its life as a Gothic revival folly, and perhaps a rendezvous for bathers and lovers. Then it became a Victorian gamekeeper's house, before finally being abandoned in 1945 and left to rot for 70 years. When Mark began, it had no roof and the walls and floors had completely fallen in. He's turned a derelict 18th century folly into a modern family home.
You're still alive, mate. You're still here?
Still here, mate.
You haven't dropped?
Nice to see you again, mate.
Good to see you. All in? Settled?
Yeah.
Have you just got in?
4 days, yeah.
4 days?
Yeah, we just finished putting stuff away.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think.
Hello, you. Someone's looking very pretty over there.
Princesses live in castles, you see.
It looks great. Look at it!
The new courtyard is stunning.
Man, look at that. I love the way, actually, even standing here, that you look up and you see the old part with all the period detailing, and then you get the modern courtyard beneath it.
She sat there first night in the bed and looked up and thought...
I didn't know if I was actually awake or I was
dreaming.
dreaming it.
Mark's kept and beautifully restored that unique original exterior, but has completely transformed the inside.
I mean, this is the line of the old part.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
You cross that line, and you're in a different world. Oh, man. Look at that space! Even through the exposed timbers at the very top, just that lovely, rich timber effect of the old building.
On the ground floor, he's recreated 2 of the small rooms into a comfortable dining area and living room.
This is my lounge.
Looks like it's been here for 300 years, doesn't it? Look at it, all the detail on the ceiling and everything. I know it's cost you a fortune in so many ways.
I think the building deserved the respect, that bit of respect and the extra money.
It's been well worth it.
Yeah.
Because it looks fantastic.
Mark has put back the staircase, done away with the 4 small rooms and created a spacious master bedroom. Sheena, totally in keeping with the Follies' former ostentatious past, has styled it in a French Baroque fashion. It's super glam. The heart and soul of this decadent building has been indulged once again.
Oh, look at that! You've gone for it.
I have.
In a huge way. God, look at the ceiling.
Yeah.
When you go away to a nice posh country house hotel for the weekend, I said I'll give you that every night of your life. So that's what we've done for her.
And Mark hasn't held back on the ensuite either.
Oh my God. It's the full Monty in here.
While there's no expense spared with the Italian marble, sadly the same can't be said for the window.
You still left that glass in though. I told you about that.
Yeah, no. I might change it later.
The join and juxtaposition between the old Folly and the new modern extension is fluid, light and spacious.
What a difference. You come from old restoration bit in a modern projector TV room. Look at that. I tell you what, sometimes the boy just never grows up.
And following on from the cinema is the gym.
Just to keep me fit.
Bit of heart attack prevention, I think that's a good thing, mate.
What I love about this new extension is that all the rooms face onto the central courtyard, but the old Folly still dominates, so you're always reminded of the unique history of this building. On the north side is a generous family kitchen.
One of the nicest things about courtyards. Very safe,
Yeah.
very protected.
Very safe.
Beautiful, beautiful spaces
Yeah.
where everybody comes into that heart of the home all the time. Hello, girls.
Here they are.
How are you? You alright? Come on, do you want to show me your room? Come on.
And all the girls' bedrooms around the courtyard are fitting for modern 21st century princesses. The older girls have the option to make their rooms into one big space. And with the hot tub in the courtyard, the bath lodge is once again living up to its name.
What do you think of the courtyard?
Really nice. Lots of parties out there.
Although Mark still has to conform to conservation demands and change the white UPVC skylight and put in the glass panel at the front, he has at last built his family dream home. This building has continually puzzled the local neighbourhood. And while Mark has gone on with the build, I've really enjoyed unravelling its past. I want them all to know its extraordinary history so they too can pass it on to their families and future owners.
So I've got a little present for you. A little gift. Bit of a kind of this is your life moment. The bath lodge. All the journey, all the history, your journey for the last year and a half, all documented within this book. From 1740s, 1787, all the way through all the uses.
That is unbelievable to look back now at that to that.
Amazing old building, fully restored. For me, you've saved an important piece of history in this building. And actually, you've created a fantastic building for you and your family for years to come. I think it's fantastic.
Well, thanks, George.
That's
So
lovely.
well done. Honestly, you should be
You keep
super
that
proud.
safe because I did it for you, babe.
Thank
Well done, mate. Proud of you. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant.
And my girls, of course.
Exactly, exactly.
Come here, you two. It's the only way you get warm. Give them a hug.
Brought up on a council estate, Mark has achieved his lifetime ambition to build a grand house where he and his family can put down some permanent roots.
When I first came to see this building, it was incredibly sad. It was tragic that it had been left in such a neglected state. No one really cared about it. The roof was caving in. It was on the buildings at risk register as well. But then Mark came along, someone who really saw the potential of this architectural gem, and he made the decision to make it into a family home. And I think what he's done here is beautiful. This is a building that's been admired around the entire landscape for the last 300 years, and thankfully, because he's done such a good job, it's going to be admired for at least another 300 years to come.